Hi, I'm Sydney Campbell.
I'm Zaria Henry.
I'm Natalie LaRue.
And I'm Zaria Selman, and this is our presentation on overwintering honeybees.
So, to begin, I wanted to start by explaining what exactly overwintering means. Put simply, overwintering is the process by which some organisms wait out the winter or part of the year when winter-like conditions make normal activity or survival difficult or impossible. They do this by forming a winter cluster around the queen, with the colony itself much reduced in size. They are less active, though not entirely dormant, and the cluster shivers to keep warm. The overwintering state of honeybee colonies is characterized by changes in their behavior and physiology, such as reduced individual activity, changes in endocrine profiles, increased nutrient stores, and increased longevity, as well as changes at the colony level, such as cessation of blood rearing and formation of a thermoregulating cluster. Honeybees significantly contribute to the United States agricultural economy. This is why, more recently, honeybee health has been receiving more attention than normal. The National Academy of Sciences states that there are multiple threats to bees, including parasites, pathogens, pesticide exposure, habitat loss, as well as many others. Scientists have identified pesticide exposure as one of the leading threats, and with that, activists have attributed recent declines to a particular class of pesticides called neonicotinoids. If you break down the word, you see that neonicotinoids are new nicotine-like insecticides. Muhammad Shoaib Salim, Zachary Y. Huang, and Megan O. Milbrath from the Department of Agriculture and Agribusiness Management at the University of Karachi in Pakistan recently completed a study to determine exactly at what temperatures honeybees can withstand the effects of neonicotinoids. To reveal such potential interactions, they administered low doses of two neonicotinoid insecticides, imidacloprid and thiamethoxam, at three different temperatures and determine the effects on honeybee survivorship. They discovered that honeybees are much more sensitive to these specific neonicotinoids at a constant 24 degrees Celsius or at varying temperatures compared to bees at 35 degrees Celsius. This means that these doses of neonicotinoids that are deemed safe during the summer might kill those same bees during the winter.
So again, to emphasize the importance of the study that Zaria just mentioned, we learned that honeybees may have a sensitivity to pesticides in the wintertime, and doses that are safe to colonies during the summer might actually be killing them during the winter. Now, this may be due to alterations in thermoregulation caused by these neonicotinoids. Another study that I found showed that alterations in thermoregulation caused by thiamethoxam, which is also a neonicotinoid used in the study that we just talked about, can affect the bees' foraging activity, their in-hive tasks, brood rearing, have negative consequences at the colony level, so not even just the individual ability of the bee, but as a colony, and affect the navigation, mobility, and memory of the bees. So as consumers, why should we care about these different aspects that the neonicotinoids can affect? Well, honeybees are responsible for 70% of global crop production, and this includes fruits, nuts, vegetables, and many others that account for 168 billion US dollars per year. And that was recorded in 2019. On a non-domestic level, bees also are responsible for reproduction of 90% of the world's wild plant species. So we can see how they also contribute to the variety and the diversity of some of our world's plant species in our environment. If we were to not care about some of these particular aspects of neonicotinoid use and temperature use on bees, then we could possibly lose some of our favorite food crops and have a major loss in our economy. So this is why I believe that further experiments and research studies are needed to study the mechanisms of temperature-dependent pesticide sensitivity in honeybees. One of the important things that I noted from both of the studies was that neither of them said that we should completely eradicate neonicotinoid use, but that we should instead be focused on why these different aspects of the temperature dependency may be important to the life of the honeybee and the colony.
Overall, there were four main opposing viewpoints about overwintering of bees. The first one that I found was regarding the physiological state of honeybees during the winter. Honeybees are one of the few animals that have adapted to survive winter conditions. This counteracts the idea that honeybees are unable to survive harsh winter conditions. The next opposing viewpoint that I found was the uncertainty of why honeybee hives have declined in winter months. It is previously stated that honeybee hives are thought to decline during the winter months due to low temperatures. However, there are other things that could contribute to this loss, such as disease infiltrating the hives, predators attacking the hives, geographic location of the hives, etc. The third reason I found was that temperature does not dictate their reproductive cycles. The entire study of neonicotinoids has to do with studying their reproductive patterns during different temperatures. In the article titled Overwintering Honeybees, Biology and Management, it states that photoperiod might actually be the main factor affecting reproduction. The last opposing viewpoint is that there really is not much research done to prove the benefits of overwintering regarding using pesticides. Because there is so little research done, the claims being made in the neonicotinoid research have little credibility.
The second opposing viewpoint is that the declining population of bees is not necessarily due to increased neonicotinoid use. To further illustrate, neonicotinoid pesticides were first developed in the 1980s, and there are currently 120 registered countries that use neonicotinoids, and it's used more than any other insecticide class. When you look at the second red arrow on the bottom, the European Union has partially restricted neonicotinoid pesticides since 2013. Due to this restriction, the European Union agricultural community and household use has returned to harsher and older pesticides that have an even bigger effect on the environment rather than the minimal effect that could be found in neonicotinoid pesticide use. Here, there's two graphs. The one on the left shows neonicotinoid use in the United States, while the graph on the right shows the declining bee population in the United States. As I said earlier, in the 1980s, neonicotinoid use was first developed, and this graph shows that it really started to increase in popularity around 2004, and since then has been steadily increasing. The graph on the right, we can see that the bee population in the United States has been steadily declining. And if we try and look at 1980s, when neonicotinoid pesticides were first introduced, we don't see the same correlation. We don't see the same slope of decrease in bee colony as an increase in pesticide use or insecticide use. And the reason being is that in the 1987, the US was first introduced to parasitic mites, and the parasitic mites have more to do with the declining bee population rather than the increased use of insecticides, primarily neonicotinoids. As stated in the Purdue University extension of what beekeepers should know about bee mites, recent surveys show that the Verona mite causes more colony losses in North America and Europe than any other factor. And that study did include neonicotinoid use. We can also look at the neonicotinoid labels because a lot of people do use neonicotinoids. There's restrictions on, or at least recommendations on what you should and should not use neonicotinoids for. There's a general idea of what you should and should not do to begin. And as you can see, as you look further into the directions for use, each application cite for specific use restrictions and instructions to protect bees and other insect pollinators. So on every neonicotinoid that you would purchase, you would find a label similar to this. And it's produced by the EPA, and the EPA requires that all neonicotinoids have this kind of a label. So this helps to protect the bee population because you wouldn't want to put it directly on the soil. You wouldn't want to spray it during times where the pollinators would be especially active, particularly evenings or when the flowers are in full bloom. And you really don't want to use it any more than you already need to. So if the plants that you're trying to spray aren't affected by insects, then you shouldn't use it on the plants. So with this application restrictions that are labeled on every product of neonicotinoids, it helps to reduce any effect of neonicotinoids on the environment and especially on pollinators. As you can see here, we've got our work cited from all of our different sources. If you have any other questions about anything that we talked about, these are the sources we used, and you can go to any of these websites or reports to find out any more information about neonicotinoid use and the bee population. And I hope you guys were able to learn something and really enjoyed it.